Hey guys, and welcome to this week's author chat. This week we're on a Tuesday instead of a Saturday, so I hope you guys enjoy a weekday chat. Today we have author Sarah Porter, no relation, for her title, Never Contented Things. This one actually isn't even out yet. It comes out, what, on the 19th, I think?
19th, week from today.
So there is that. I really love this cover. It's very creepy. I love how they actually lopped off the top of her head and stuff.
Yeah.
It really just makes everything centered right in your face.
Because the model was wearing black contact lenses and they decided that was too creepy. The marketing department was like, yeah, no. It's like, they were like, it looks too horror. And I was like, it kind of is horror. And they were like, no, too creepy. So.
All right. And I'm going to go mute the rest of my messages here because everybody decided to start messaging me all at the same time. I thought I got everybody. I missed someone. All right, so we're going to get on to this, and I hope you guys have a great day. And without further ado, here is Sarah Porter. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, how do I get the questions? I don't know quite how this
will
works.
actually ask them to you. So Our first question is, of course, the normal ones. Tell us a little bit about you and your titles.
Young adult fantasy novelist, apparently writing the weirdest books people have ever read, so I keep hearing. And I don't think they're that weird. They're not that weird to me, but why would they be? And yeah, and I also have written one middle grade and a bunch of unpublished adult novels. One of these days, I'll get some of my adult fiction out there. And yeah, I live in Brooklyn. And so some of my books are set in Brooklyn, but not all of them. And I have a really sweet husband and a really cute 15-month-old baby daughter, Vesper, who's the cutest thing in the universe, but she's not here. So I could actually do this without being interrupted every 5 minutes. And yeah, whatever else anyone would like to know.
Right. I did forget to mention, guys, if you have questions, you can post them onto the comment section to the video on YouTube. You can send them out to any of the social medias. Just make sure you tag us with I think it's at Sarah Porter Books, and or is it book? I think it's at Sarah Porter Book.
Yeah, I think it's books on Twitter because that was all there was room for. Book on Twitter and books on Instagram. Because Twitter doesn't let you have that much room.
Of course. And then, of course, add cross review and hashtag AuthorChat. Send your questions. I will find them one way or another. All right. So the next question is, it seems that as you go on writing, your books get darker and darker. Do you think that you will ever go even darker in your next title?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, I actually have started. Actually, the next title. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it darker. I finished my next book for Tortine already, and it's in the it's in the process. It's in the pipeline, and I don't know what the title is yet. I can't tell you. We're still talking about the title. It may be All His Cherished Horrors. It may be something different, but it concerns a boy who wakes up in an airport with a very foggy memory of how he got there. An 18-year-old, cute boy, and he thinks he's just an innocent kid out of high school who wants to find his true love, and really he's an embodied curse cast by an evil magician who will kill the next girl he falls in love with and kisses. So maybe that's even darker. Is that even darker? I don't know. It is, but it's not, because it's a little bit brighter and funnier in its tone. It's probably the tone is closer to Vasa, that kind of bright, dark, spangly dark thing that I did in Vasa. So I think it might be less dark, but it is from the point of view of this character who's an embodiment of toxic masculinity and who is he's basically a serial killer or a serial killer's weapon, depending on your point of view. The old sorcerer who sent him out has sent him out many, many times, and he's killed a lot of girls, but he doesn't know that, so at least not at first. He doesn't know it at first.
Kind of the Sorcerer's Apprentice movie that they did a while back ago, kind of, but where they were like good guys. This is like a good guy, bad guy type thing.
Yeah, he's not an apprentice. He's like a projection of the sorcerer as he was when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
But so he's like a physical embodiment, a re-embodiment. But his name is Angus, and he's like that kind of cutesy, wootsy, I'm so romantic and innocent kind of toxic masculinity, where he thinks he's just like the most adorable thing. But he's actually really, really bad news. So writing from that point of view was pretty fun. And that should be out in about a year. I don't have a release date yet, but it's in the works. It's chugging along.
Sounds really good. Right. So your next question is, what are you currently reading?
Currently reading, I'm doing a ton of research for this crazy trilogy I'm starting. So I'm reading a giant, lumbering 800-page biography of Napoleon. Ooh. Can't remember the author's name. Yeah, and that's all the kind of stuff I'm going to be reading for like the next year. It's going to be all research because I'm writing a book set during the Napoleonic Wars. And man, you can get so much stuff wrong with historical fiction. There's just an infinite amount of detail that you can screw up. I'm trying not to do that too much.
At least you're doing the legwork that's required for those instead of just trying to toss it together.
Oh my gosh, no matter how much research you do, though, you will mess stuff up. It is because there's so many details to writing an historical an epoch. Like there's actually a book I'm not going to name, but I know that she did incredibly exacting research, unbelievably thorough research down to like the weather on the given day. But she has sidewalks in Regency England. They didn't have sidewalks in Regency England, but they had sidewalks in London then. Even though she did I know this author did like an incredible amount of research, she still messed it up. There's sidewalks. You just walked in the street. They hadn't been invented yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You just walked in, in all the chaos and dirt and filth of all the horses, pooping everywhere and everything. There were no sidewalks.
So he's very inconvenient.
Yeah. Well, sidewalks when they came were this great invention. And we were like, wow, cool. Sidewalks.
I am so sorry, guys. My daughter does not take a hint to call her grandmother. She keeps trying to call me, and of course it goes to everything because I have Apple, so it goes to my phone, the computer, my iPad. It just goes everywhere. All right. Do you have a favorite quote from your current title, Never Contented Things?
Favorite quote? Oh, that's tough. Yeah, probably some of the creepy stuff Josh says in part 1. The part where they talk about because he's like, yeah, they might just never come home. I'm not saying I wish they would die, Mitch and Emma. It's not that I want them to die. They just might not ever find their way home again. And Ksenia says, yeah, that's totally a thing that happens. And he's like, yes, it is. That's why you should be very careful about going on vacation. You just might never find your way back. I love that exchange. That exchange, I think, is really effectively creepy. Yeah, I'm proud of that part. I like all the little creepy exchanges they have in part 1 where Ksenia's figuring it out. I like that's the slow eeriness of that. I know it's maybe not everybody's bag, but it's mine.
Awesome. My oldest daughter is addicted to horror films. So, you stated earlier when we were chatting that your second YA novel, when I Cast Her Shadow, didn't do very well. Do you have an idea on why it didn't sell very well, or maybe?
That's actually my 5th. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's actually my 5th. There was a trilogy before these books.
Okay.
There's the Lost Voices trilogy before. These are the books for Tortine. There was the Lost Voices trilogy on HMH previously.
I thought that was a middle grade novel.
No, those are younger YA. They are YA, but more aimed at 12, 13. Okay. When I Cast Your Shadow, yeah, it tanked. It was brutal. I maybe shouldn't be this honest, but it tanked and it was brutal, and I was totally crushed. This is my favorite of my published novels. Why it didn't do as well? It really bugged people. For one thing, Tor didn't promote it as much, and because they got really excited about Never Contented Things, they were like, "This is the book," and I was like, "But what about the other book?" And they'd kind of moved on emotionally. This book made people really mad. It got completely pissed off reviews on Goodreads. It's, problematic. It has consent issues. It's all about consent issues. So to me, I'm like, well, yeah, it has consent issues because that's what it's about. But for a lot of people, it was just downright offensive. And Ruby is not a strong female character, the protagonist. She is a really messed up girl, and she is not very together, and she is kind of passive. And to me, like, that's the character, but not everyone finds that even acceptable, you know, to have a character like that. Ruby made people really mad. Her older brother Dashiell, who's dead and is a ghost, is pretty evil. People who thought I was endorsing Dashiell's behavior, which I was not, were super pissed. So yeah, it was definitely not for everybody. And some people loved it. The people who loved it really, really, really loved it, which is kind of how it seems to go with my books. People, I'm a love them or hate them author. And I'm just coming to terms with that over the years. But
no middle ground.
There's not a lot of middle grounds. And so this book, though, had really extreme reactions. You know, there were people who were like, this book helped me through grieving for my fiance and like made this huge difference. And then there are a lot of people who were just like, what is this thing? So if that sounds like it's your kind of thing, it is my personal favorite.
I think people just really have to come to terms with that. You know, not every female character can be, you know, a strong, outspoken character, because real life isn't like that either. You know, you have people that are more timid, and then you have the people that are more outspoken. It goes both ways. So, you know, it's kind of nice to have a character that, you know, in a title that isn't outspoken, to, you know, see somebody, you know, either her, you know, get to the point where she saves herself or somebody else comes in and save her. Because you can't always be the hero of your own story. Sometimes you have to rely on other people.
I mean, to me, she is heroic in her way, but it's not in a way that I think a lot of people necessarily respect. You know, she does do some very brave things in the book, but she does have this, you know, kind of hapless, messed up adoration for her dead brother, who is the ghost. And it is very apparent to the reader that he's manipulating her, that he's playing games with her, that his behavior is messed up, and then she's justifying his behavior, which is and his behavior is totally not okay, you know, and I was well aware of that when I was writing. But a lot of people found that an intolerable position to be in, to be like, you know, reading about this girl who is so clearly putting herself in getting herself deeper and deeper in hot water in this misguided way, instead of, you know, recognizing the pathology. But she can't. I don't know. I definitely couldn't recognize pathology like that when I was a teenager, or indeed well into my 20s. So really not until I was about 30 did I start to get wise to manipulative games and things like that, and know when people were behaving in messed up, unacceptable ways. So I tend to have a lot of sympathy for characters like that, but not everyone does. You know, I think it's tough. I think it's really hard to know those things.
Yeah. Right. So your next question is that you went from doing a retelling into ghosts into the Fae.
Mm-hmm.
Was it hard to leave the last book behind?
Not really. And now, yeah, and the next one has this embodied curse. I mean, I'm probably always going to be on that line between the fantastic and the real, because that's where I feel most at home. But I'll never write a contemporary realist novel, like ever, ever, ever. That won't happen. I mean, there's always a sorrow when you finish a book. There's always like some grief leaving the characters, especially, you know, I was so emotionally invested in this book that it was really hard to let it go. And I was so emotionally invested in the characters in this one. And to a lesser degree, never contented things. Like there's a grieving process of letting go of each character when a book is done. And especially, you know, I've been hearing like the voices in my head for months, and I've been almost feeling like the characters are present in the room, like kind of warm, animate shadows. And that, yes, that is hard to let go of. But letting go of like the Fae versus ghost versus whatever, nah. Because they're all just ways of seeing what the characters are going through. I just jump to the next. They're like kind of metaphors for what the characters are going through to some degree. So it's fairly easy to just jump into the next metaphor.
Okay. Your next question is, Never to Contented Things focuses on a lot of messed up family relationships. Where did you get the inspiration for this?
Oh, gee. I mean, I come from a fairly messed up family, not as messed up as Josh and Ksenia's, but in the ballpark. And I mean, my parents did a lot of things right, but they did a lot of things wrong. So yeah, I've known a lot of people, and almost everyone I know comes from families that are pretty messed up in one way or another, even families that look, superficially really together. You scratch below the surface and it turns out there's all kinds of stuff. Like families that, there was no divorce and there was always the big suburban house and everything was really solid and together, but actually, the dad was totally cold and withdrawn and the kids were really angry. And I have not known that many people who came from really great homes that I would envy. I've known a few. And I have envied those people for having these beautiful childhoods with these loving, supportive parents. But I feel like that, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like that's relatively rare. Like coming from a truly happy, stable, loving home where there aren't any major problems, there's no major drama. I mean, I'm sure it happens. It doesn't happen often enough.
Right. It seems to be there's always something going on in one way, shape, form, or another.
It often is. I mean, I do know people who come from those ideal homes where you're just like, wow, they just grew up in this bath of love, and it shows, right? Those people have that glowing warmth and confidence about them all their lives. They're just like they've been buttered in love from the time they were born, and that's what I'm trying to have for my daughter. But a lot of my friends come from really bad situations and really fought to get out of the emotional mess of it all. Fought for years, therapy for years, and maybe by the time they're 40, they finally clawed their way out of the mess. But yeah, I think that's true for a lot of us. It's just it's harder than I think a lot of books want to portray it as, want to admit.
Your next question is, do you ever think you will write a follow-up to Vasa in the Night?
I thought about it because obviously Vasa could come back as working for Picnic in Pangolin and researching magical crimes. She clearly could do that, and it would be pretty fun. So yes, it's crossed my mind. Oh, and here's Erg, by the way. Say hi, Erg. She lives on my desk. So yeah, I thought about it, and I mean, honestly, probably if Vasa had been a bestseller, I would have encouraged me to pursue that, but it did fine. But now I've moved on to this other project I'm working on, just starting a trilogy. Like that's going to be the next 3 years. So I'm pretty swamped. I'm pretty swamped with new ideas. I find it hard to go back. I jump into the next idea and then I'm immersed in the next idea. And I'm not sure I could get back to the state of mind I was in when I wrote Vasa to write a sequel. It was a very specific frame of mind, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to return to it.
Sad face.
I know.
I love that book so much.
Oh, thank you.
Will we see any more retellings from you in the future?
My hunch is no, but I don't want to say never. I mean, Vasa was based on Russian wonder tales, which were incredibly important to me as a child. I grew up, my mom read them to us all the time. We had this beautiful book that had been given to my grandfather in like 1911, and she read us those stories over and over again. So it was kind of a tribute to my childhood. And there is nothing else that feels that way to me, where I feel like I have to write a retelling as this way of, going back to my roots. So yeah, but I, never say never. Maybe if I get an idea I'm really excited about and it's a retelling, I'll do it.
So the next question actually ties in with that question.
Okay.
Had to pick a fairy tale to do a retelling for, what would you be? What would you pick and why?
I would do another Russian wonder tale. I would do either. I've actually thought about this. I would do Ivan, the Firebird, Ivan and the Grey Wolf and the Firebird. That one, which is, I actually thought of doing something with that like in the same world as Vasa, and that alternative Brooklyn. The Grey Wolf in the original Russian fairy tale eats Ivan's horse, and that's how they meet. Talk about a meet cute, right? It's like devours his horse, and then he's like, "Well, I ate your horse, so I'll give you a ride where you're going next." and they become friends. Yeah, and they become friends. And Ivan messes up over and over and over again. He does everything wrong, and the gray wolf is so tolerant and forgives him every single time. And I thought of doing one based on that relationship because it's pretty great. And there's also Finest the Falcon, which is, again, another Russian wonder tale where the girl is visited every night by her lover in the form of a falcon, her magic lover, and her sisters find out and get jealous, and they put broken glass all over the windowsill. So he gets caught up and he thinks she did it. So he leaves her, and then she has to go find him again. And it's totally not her fault, and it's like terrible. But I think that one would make a great YA retelling, and maybe someone else should do it if I don't do it, because it would be really beautiful. But yeah, one of those two.
That would make like a really cool like anthology. So it's all just nothing but short stories based on the different version tales. That would be so cool.
Yeah, I'm never gonna write. I don't like short stories. I don't even like reading them very much. I barely write them once in a great while. But it's not my thing.
I feel you there. There are very, very few novellas that I have read and actually enjoyed.
Yeah, I just like more scope for my characters. I don't want to end in 30 pages or 10 pages. No way.
Okay, so the next question is, out of all the titles that you've had published, which one would you most like to see as a movie or a TV show, and who would you cast as the star?
Woo! When I Cast Your Shadow, I would love it. I saw that as a movie so vividly, and I don't know his name, but there was an actor on Stranger Things who plays there's the new girl who comes in. What's her name? The redhead girl who comes in, and she has that older asshole brother. The really good-looking older asshole brother. It's like season 2 of Stranger Things.
I have no idea.
Okay, somebody out there knows. Anyway, the actor who plays the older asshole brother would make the perfect Dashiell. He would make the perfect Dashiell. Dashiell is also an incredibly beautiful asshole. That guy was so good at playing a beautiful asshole. He looks just like Dash. So, yeah, I would cast him. I could look it up. I have no idea what that guy's name is, though.
Oh my god! I knew you were gonna pick that one because it was your favorite. So that's awesome. All right. The next question is: have you ever thought of doing a dark high fantasy?
Secondary world fantasy. Yeah. I mean, my editor told me she doesn't want me doing that. So that's why I'm not doing it. Really, that's like the main reason. I actually kind of started something, and maybe I'll finish it someday. But unless I don't know. It has crossed my mind. Yes, it is not impossible, but I would have to get a buy-in from my editor. And so far, she's been like, no, stay mixing reality and fantasy, which is, comes pretty naturally to me. So that's fine. The thing I just started, though, working on is historical pseudoscience fantasy. So it's a bit of a change.
What is that?
Like, it's sort of based on science that's not real, that could be real. So the fantasy in it isn't magic. It's just like impossible science, impossible for us. So I guess alternative history with alternative science that's like totally crazy, that we, could not actually do in real life.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I just started it. We'll see where it goes. I don't have like a contract for it yet or anything. So we'll see what happens with this project. It may be a little too bonkers. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, that is all the questions for today, it seems. I'm checking all the other social media again really quick just to make sure there's nothing on there if this decides to be nice to me and load. All right, looks like we're good to go. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. Thank you, Jessica.
It was a blast.
It was great to talk to you. Thanks for inviting me.
Right, everybody, of course, the giveaway for this copy of Never Contended Things is up right now on the site. You guys can check it out there. And make sure to join us next week we're back to Saturday on the 23rd at 1 p.m. while we talk with Lori Forrest for The Rebel Mages. This is actually a bind-up a bind-up book of her 2 novellas that she did for the Black.
Oh.
Which is 2 of the very, very few novellas that I have actually loved. I mean, this is really thick. I mean, it's basically almost 2 books in itself. She did some really long novellas. I was going to see how long this is. Let's see. One Facet, which takes place before the Black Witch, is actually 269 pages.
Oh, that's really a novel then.
That's really more like a novel itself versus a novella. And then the other one is, I think, around the same spot.
Yeah, I don't consider it a novella if it's over about maybe 150 max.
Yeah, so this is basically like an actual book. I did the same thing with the novellas from the Throne of Glass series, and when they bound it up, it's like this is basically one whole story that takes over a couple of, I think it's a couple of years or so. But even though it's kind of like each story in itself, it's still one complete story that leads up to the first book. So, but this was I loved these 2 novellas. So definitely come back and hang out with us on the 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to chat with Lori Forrest, author of The Black Witch. So thank you guys so much for showing up. This video, of course, will stay on here forever. If you guys have any extra questions, you can check out Sarah Porter's social media accounts. Oh, it's been a long day already. And I hope you guys all have the great rest of the week. And we'll catch you guys later.